Hey, my beautiful listeners, we are back with season 3 of The Beautiful Side of Grief, and I'm your host, Helen Morris. My incredible guests continue to share their own personal stories of grief in so many different forms, and how they have managed to find the positives and beauty from their experiences. And I hope by listening to these honest, heartfelt accounts, you can find the tips, insights, resources, and strategies you need for where you are right here and now. And maybe one day even find your own beautiful side to your grief. So share away, as I would love this podcast to reach as many who need to hear it as possible. And don't forget to check out the episode notes as well for more information and links. Plus, the energy healing I do that changed my life forever. And this season, I'd love to share the affirmations and meditations I'm working on also, so stay tuned for those. Right now, though, my thanks to you for listening in, and let's check out who this week's guest is. Today, we are tuning in for a bit of courage, hope, and inspiration. That's the acronym for Pratibha Day's YouTube show, Chai Together, where she advocates for the mental health and well-being of women, children, and the elderly. In addition to being the founder of Chai Together, Pratibha is a visionary, author, entrepreneur, motivational speaker, teacher, and she has a background in interpersonal communication and education. Now, she has overcome numerous adversities in the South Asian culture, but also just in life general. Pratibha is also an author with an upcoming book entitled Resiliency, a woman's journey from scarcity to success. And I love this. I wanted to chat to Pratibha today about the myriad of grief she has experienced, primarily with growing up with a mum who wasn't like other mums, a mum who had schizophrenia but wasn't diagnosed until many years later, and the grief of not having the supportive family, her foray into homelessness, plus the grief of child loss. Through all of this, she has managed to work out who she is, how that fits in with others, and to find her own path to success. My intention for today's show is for you to be inspired to overcome whatever it is that is holding you back in your life, or whatever is challenging you, by understanding what it is that is important to you, as Pratibha is a great example of this. Plus, I'm sending you loads of love, hope, and happiness as you find your own way through your grief. So, welcome, Pratibha. Absolutely wonderful to have you as my guest today.
Wow. I just want to say that intro is brilliant, and I enjoy your voice a lot. I could listen to you all day. And, it makes me proud to hear about myself, as an introduction that, wow, it's remarkable, like how much I've done and where I am.
Yes, and that's incredible, because how old are you right now? You're not very old.
29.
Yes, I was just going
29.
to say, I don't think you've even hit 30. So what you've experienced in that short time frame of your life is really, really profound. And we're going to take a look at that. But first of all, I wanted to have a look at what shaped you growing up, and in particular, having a mum who wasn't who you expected her to be. Can you share with us what you mean by that, and, of course, the impact of that?
So growing up, my mom has never been emotionally there. And that's what I stated in my first video for Chai Together, inspiration behind Chai. And I talked about how it is to be a daughter with a mother who has, schizophrenia and health anxiety disorder, which are two different diagnoses. And growing up, I knew, she was not like other moms, such as you stated, and that she's different. But I didn't know about mental health. Like, I didn't know what she had or why she is this way. There were scenarios I remember since young, when I was 5 years old in India, where, I was left in a room. I woke up from a nap, and being 5, I remember this, being a toddler, that I woke up and no one was there, like as in no one was there, and I was abandoned. And that's where my subconscious and abandonment began. And I remember holding on to the window bars in India. There's like steel bars as windows, and crying.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see her walking in, from getting groceries. Another time of a scenario of abandonment was, when I came to the States and we had visited Canada. I was possibly in elementary school for second grade. And my mom left me in the bathroom and thought that I just went to the car myself. So not being able to wire those two things together, that she's just, assuming that I made it safely back to the van for a road trip instead of waiting for me in the bathroom, or, not having the ability to remember, or to know. There was a scenario where the cops were called because I was out too late at night when I was young, in elementary school as well. And I was just over a friend's house, and it was about 9 p.m. So in India, it's different, where you just come inside, like back in the old days where when the lights come on, you come home for dinner. But in the States, it's a little different. It was 9 p.m. and I was not to be found. So not really keeping tabs on me. So that's one of the things. But when it comes to Mother's Day, when it comes to that joy of, knowing what a Mother's Day is like, which I never knew about until I came to the States. And, people will always celebrate that. But however, I'm like, why doesn't, my mom and I celebrate that, even though we're from a different culture? And her not really wanting to. And then there was one birthday where I had purchased like a diamond necklace that she was interested in from a magazine back when we looked at magazines. Now it's 2022, and got her a whole birthday cake and fresh roses, and really went all out. And this is when I was in high school working at Burger King, and I spent a few $100s on my mom, but she did not respond in a way hence, quote unquote, a normal person would respond with a thank you or excitement or joy. It was a nonchalant response. There was no emotion, like in the facial features. It was more so like, What is this? And opened it. And why did you spend this amount of money? Or there was no joy, but there was no joy because that's something that's within herself, not something that I caused. So I was really heartbroken, and I cried, and I would always cry at situations such as this, but I never knew that it's because, she's hearing voices or having hallucinations of those things. So yeah, I'll stop there for now.
Yeah. So how did your dad manage all of this? Was he really supportive to you? Did he fill in the gaps and be that supportive parent for you?
No, he's not. He doesn't have an understanding about mental health or my mom's diagnosis.
Right. So there you are. And I guess that's a footprint for trauma, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's all these things that we feel but don't necessarily understand. And so we have no way to navigate it. So we just, I guess, like for me, for my own trauma, what I did was I did whatever it took to protect myself. So I grew up making sure that I would respond to situations before everybody else had a chance to hurt me, and I would take myself away from situations or not put myself in groups of people that I didn't feel safe with. And so I actually became quite isolated growing up. That was my way of dealing with it. What were some of the strategies that you think you developed from a young age and put in place?
To cope with that?
Yeah, to cope with your mom and the situations.
Honestly, I did not. I was suicidal. I went down. Actually, this is not my reality now, but at that time, my mom having this condition and anxiety, because she has anxiety disorder. Like if something's out of place, she can have like an attack, If it's to that extreme now, she's well and on medication, but before it can get out of hand, I would come home to my room being redone, like things being touched and misplaced, because that's how functioning she was at the time. So I didn't really I cope with it with just having depression. It caused me anxiety. I actually grew body dysmorphia. I fell into my own hell. Like I fell into my own diagnosis from having a parent, with these diagnoses. I was able to grow out of it eventually because I just believed. And I believe belief is such a strong thing. And this is what we teach at my workplace as well. Belief is so strong that I knew one day I would overcome this. I knew that this isn't what my life is going to be. And I just believe that this is going to be over one day, and suicide is not the answer to that. And I was able to believe in this when I first traveled at 21. I traveled all over the States. And once I saw how beautiful places were and life was, I decided that suicide is not the answer and I have to keep traveling more, and it helps me heal. So I started coping with traveling. I started coping through having new experiences, getting a new set of friends. I became a CrossFitter, so I trained and worked out and used that as a coping mechanism, and having time and space away from her. But really, it was through educating myself and learning about mental health and taking psychology courses and having friends in the same field, and then going through my own story that really was the emotional impact that woke me up and made me realize that it's not their fault. And then I came to realize that all this is happening so I can be an answer, a support, a mentor for her and others, and do what I do now.
That's incredible that you've reached that place. But what was it? Let's backtrack a bit, because what was it that led you to that understanding and that need, or realizing that you needed to take ownership of your life and bring about the healing you needed? Because that's quite a different thing. We can understand that, we have some stuff going on with ourselves, and we can have the belief that life is going to get better, but we have to be a participant in that. We can't just hope that it's going to happen. So what was it what was the point that you reached to know that you needed to get some healing?
So I had actually moved to Thailand in 2019. One of the reasons was my mom, because she was on medication and I just could no longer bear it. I was at a very low point that I needed to change. So I basically went there and would think that I'm leaving my trauma behind, but it carried with me, and I isolated myself. I isolated myself such as you did. But that point was when I returned from Thailand. And at this point, I was in my pregnancy and I was leaving a domestic violence situation from abroad. And I was only 26 at this time, coming back in 2019, and now I'm 29. So when I returned, I was in a very low point with homelessness, with no money, not finishing my education, not having the support system, especially with, parents who are unwell themselves, were able to have those resources to support me with children. And I took full responsibility for my actions at the time, and I decided that I'm going to go through with abortion. And I'm a teacher by background. I teach kindergarten, fourth grade, all different levels I've experienced, and kids with disabilities. So for me to go through that was not ideal. I never thought that I was someone who would have an abortion, because I didn't think that I would ever end up in a situation like that, right? Because I thought I'm supported by the universe. I thought only positive things are going to happen. And I was careless. However, I still had this faith that nothing wrong will ever happen to me. And young people, I'm sure you heard that, can think this, that we're invincible, basically.
Yeah.
So when I returned and I made that decision, when a woman's body goes through that experience, especially with not one, but I had twins in second trimester. Second trimester, I'm sure from experience, is even more severe than when it's early on and you do an abortion. So it was more heavier on my body, and the aftermath and the healing. And I'm just now recently healing from the last of it in 2 years later now. And when I say healing, I mean physically. Like, I had a health concern because of that 2 years ago. And now I'm just healing from that from 2 years ago. And when that took place, I told myself that I'm going to be successful in life because I cannot let down my kids. Like, you know what I mean? I had lost too much that I have to show something for this, that their lives did not go in vain. Like, that was my thinking. Then it's something took over me, the emotional impact that Mr. Bob Proctor talks about, like a 9/11. That was my 9/11, because it physically affected my body, not just mentally, but my spirit. Because when I know you know and understand, but the part of me died, and not one child, but two. And knowing that it was two hit me even heavier. But I was in shock for about 5 months until I processed that grief, and didn't even fully cry until I was in a fetal position grieving. And usually moms who lose children tend to do that. And that was my wake up call. And I went into nature and I just felt something come over me and nothing was the same again. I had matured, I had become more serious, and life was no longer a joke for me. And that night I had a dream with a baby in it and a mug. And I always wanted to open my own coffee shop. And the next day I sketched it out and I came up with the channel Chai Together. And I started sharing my story of a caregiver, having a mom with schizophrenia. Then I started having guests on who have their own mental health and brain health concerns, from stroke to abortions and rape stories and different triggering topics. And I found it to be so healing to have that community. And I had catapulted myself from just being this person who started from the bottom to now overcoming, having numerous amounts of therapies, and also becoming, a mental health mentor for other people and hosting classes to help other people heal and having suicide prevention talks. So I've been doing this work now, and that's what's been the change.
That's been pretty incredible. And I want to also thank you for your courage and, actually bringing up and discussing a topic that very, very few people are brave enough to do. And that is talking about abortion, because I believe that there are probably, I wouldn't even put a number on it, but numerous souls out there who have had to suffer in silence around this. And I never believed that a choice to give up a child is an easy one. I think it's a very difficult one. I think it's a very personal one. I think it's a very private one. And my own take on that is that, it's not up to me to judge that at all. So I'm very grateful that you have shared that with us, because I'm sure there are people listening who are suffering a grief in silence, a grief that they're not able to share with others, that they're not able to talk about with others. And I love that out of that grief came your decision to start up Chai Together and to start talking about mental health, and with loads of people who are going through it at the coalface and a tremendous number of experiences. Let's also talk about why you started Chai Together, because I read that has something very special to do with you and your mum. What's the connection there?
So Chai Together, the name, but the name came about before I ever even recorded a video and posted it. I didn't even have the confidence to do that. And I had never done this before. When I had joined Mr. Les Brown's program, that's when I made my first 3-minute video on my cell phone. So it's not even where I had equipment or anything at this time. So Chai Together stems from Indian masala chai that me and my mom drink together and, have a chat while we're doing so and spend that quality time. And that name stuck with me, and I decided to take action at the same time when I think of something. So I make decisions within 2 to 20 seconds most of the time. And, the top successful people tend to do this. So I've learned that, I'm like 78% assertive, and that how I am and my personality is fire. Like there is no in between, yet I'm down to earth as a Capricorn. So I came up with that name, and I came up with one journey at a time. This is something that was like a calling that came to me. It's not where I have to ask anyone for validation. I thought of this myself, and I made it into an LLC myself, and one journey at a time. In these 2 years, I've had my ups and downs, just like normal people do as well, nothing even as tragic. And when I go through these rejections, whether it's for school, for work, or any personal, romantic, whatever it may be, I have to remind myself that it's a journey, and it's a long one, and it's a hard one, but it's a journey, and I'm going to get there. There is no end point for me, but the fact that it's not quick where, this 1 year I've reached $1 million. Let's say, for example, second year, I've done this. It can be doing something 2 years, taking a break for 5, then growing like a bamboo tree, 40 feet.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about journey, is that my journey is self-paced. I don't look to the quick entrepreneurship 90 days, this will happen, because you know what, spiritually, I take my own time, and I feel like slow is best for me, because spiritually, I will know what to do when I'm supposed to do it at what part in my life. So I don't
Oh
listen to
gosh.
others. Yeah. So
I'm
I don't,
so glad. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Can I just interrupt for
yeah,
a
go
minute?
ahead. Yeah.
I'm so pleased that you brought that up
Mm-hmm.
because that is something I was discussing with a friend overseas
Wow.
this morning, that exact same thing. And I just said, look, I just don't fit into this social media that you
Yes.
have to do things a certain way. And, you know, I said, that's just not me. I just want to do what I love doing and do it
Mm-hmm.
well. But I said, you get caught up in all this. You should be doing it this way. You need to do it this way. You need this course. You need these
Mm-hmm.
followers. You need. Actually, what you most need is just to be you and let that speak for you.
Wow. You are the next Thich Nhat Hanh. Do you know of Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese monk?
Yes, yes.
you are you are wise. Yes, I do believe in just enjoying our day, like moment to moment, and just being mindful. And honestly, it's, when I first started these programs for mindset and all, and even with Mr. Bob Proctor, studying with one of his consultants, people had these high goals or were influenced to have these high goals, like billionaire, millionaire. I
Mm,
don't want a big house. I don't, I'm happy with my essential needs. I'm happy with having enough, more than enough, and then having additional to give to others for charity, or having additional to do
yes.
something. But it doesn't always mean you have to be millionaire, billionaire. We're all in an abundance of different things. Whether you reach there or not, your life still has meaning and it still has purpose if you want it to be. It doesn't mean that every single person who stepped on this earth is going to be this level of financial, emotional, or spiritual abundance. It just means, what role are you playing? What are you here to do? Because the most giving people, a lot of them are not even known in history. They just did their
Yes.
work and left, but there was no social media, or there was no knowing. And I recently learned about a gentleman, oh my goodness, who had started this charity in Punjab in India. And he gave his whole life, dedicated his whole life to a temple, to do service, to clean, to cook, to help disabled people. Then he started a home for only people with disabilities, like whether it's physical or mental. And he adopted his son who had a physical disability and carried him on his back like his whole life, or with, the wagon, and carried him everywhere
Mm,
with him. And he started this home, and now it's so well known. But he's a man who never took money from anyone, only wanted donations and just enough food to eat for the day, and wore the same clothing every day. And he was just there for service. And his mom taught him to be that way, that we're here to just give. But that was, his understanding, his way. But he left behind a beautiful home for people with disabilities through donations, but never took anything for himself. So that's a beautiful story that I was inspired by, that you don't have to, for yourself, become millionaire, billionaire, whatever your financial goal is. It's about leaving a lasting impact that may not have anything to do with your finances, but can help other people survive,
Yes, and I think we get caught up in that as well. This need, of how we define success. And often we think that that is in the material things. Yet often, to me, my greatest success has been around the connections I've made with people.
Yes.
And what I've been able to give to others, because that is what fills my heart the most. When I'm in service or I am giving, that's when I just feel like completed. And I don't know about you, but I think that's something we probably are living in such a material world that we need to understand that actually it's more when you give, you often get so much back in return that you never ever imagined existed. And I think for me myself, that's my gold. That's my treasure. And also this beautiful world we live in. Let's take care of it.
I really like
Yeah.
that because,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know that's a lot about what you are about. I
Yes.
know that you draw for nature and you draw from others
Yes.
and you give to
Yes.
others.
Me doing this right now fills my cup. Having this talk, because it's healing for me, yet it nourishes me. And I learn from it too at the same time. And I'm
Yes.
reminded to not judge and to empathize and this is what I'm born to do. However, in my young life, with my family, I was never understood. Like, I was always told I'm too emotional. I cry too much. I remember there was a time where my sibling named me in their phone as Sadness. It's such a insult. It was such a brutal thing to do. It was so awful to name me as Sadness as a nickname when I was just someone who was very intuitive, like a flower child, someone who is wise, but I'm made fun of because I'm wise, because I'm more wise than the adults around me, but I'm bullied for that. It's quite interesting,
Yes, and I can relate to that because
Yeah.
when I was growing up, my older siblings always nicknamed me Sulky because
Wow.
I was always sulking. But what I
Wow.
was a deep thinker, and the same thing. I used to see and feel everything going on around me,
Wow.
and get really upset by it. And they always thought I was sulking, but I just was trying to make sense of this world I didn't really understand.
We are the same. We are the same. Because
It's kind of crazy,
I
isn't
don't
it?
know if you ever went on 16personalities.com. It's a psychological test. Like, it's a legitimate test you can take. I'm an INFP. It's one of the rare personality types, like, as an introvert. And I'm someone who's, I can come off social doing shows and different things, but I do best when I'm alone and reading a book and just in quiet space. That's how I recharge. And it's the best thing, that best way to be for me. And I feel like it supports me in my way of life.
I'm an INFJ.
There you go. That's why we get along so well.
Yeah. Hey, just for anybody who's listening, like, you were at rock bottom, you were homeless, you had nothing. And how did you go from that position there to actually creating the life that you have now? Because I think that is so pivotal for people to understand that maybe they may not be homeless or they may have stuff, but how do you shift yourself from being in that space to being in a space where you're taking ownership for yourself and your healing?
Oh, yes. I laugh because God was on my side. Coming home on that plane, the last plane from overseas, from Asia, halfway across the world, last plane, I thought maybe I'm going to die with the baby. That the plane was very turbulent. I'd never been on such a turbulent flight, especially in a 4-month pregnancy. I was so afraid. And I said, is this how I'm supposed to go out? But so when I was at that point, God was on my side because COVID was a blessing to me. COVID was a blessing to me financially because I received unemployment, to be transparent, from my teaching education. So when I came back to the States, that's when the pandemic occurred. I came back in January and March, April area. So I was able to apply and receive funds that have shifted my life. So I went from not having $1 to buy even a pregnancy pillow or food for myself to the work that people made fun of me for, that I'm too emotional being a teacher, or that I'm doing work that doesn't pay a lot, ended up being my savior when I received my unemployment. So I received enough to where I was mindful. I did not buy a vehicle for myself. I did not go any shopping. I invested in working with Mr. Bob Proctor. I invested in Mr. Les Brown. I went to therapy through my undergraduate, and I actually got my degree the same summer when I had my abortion with a 3.0 GPA. Amazing. Wow. And I actually made my senior project about celebrations of recovery, and I spoke. All my professors knew my story, and they were very supportive in what I'm doing with Chai Together, that my school featured Chai Together in our school newsletter. That was a pivotal moment for me because I never thought I would finish school. It was so severe. So doing that and being in therapy for 9 months, to where my therapist, I had a wonderful woman as this therapist. It was everything started going right for me after everything was wrong for me. And she really supported me. And and was a wonderful therapist, that she told me after 9 months that I am so advanced that I actually outgrew her and I knew more than her, because I started being restless and using art therapy to heal through art classes through my school. And I started to be restless with my healing, as in I was taking every program, every course, clinical breath work. I became a Reiki practitioner for Holy Fire Reiki. I started networking like insane. I started growing my community we have over 1,600 people now. And I started live streaming every single day. So I was not working, but I was working on Chai Together every single day. I was speaking on summits. I was making sure that every single day that I was doing something that will make my children proud if they were here today. And I never took advantage of my day and made sure that it was a full day, not in the sense of productivity, but that I was happy with who I am and where I am. And doing these things and getting professional help and having mentors and relationships now who support me, and networking with people who are where I would like to be, have been very pivotal for me. However, in order to do that, you have to have the right attitude and you have to be willing to do the hard work. I was restless, like I said, as in I was in ride or die mode, as in I had lost everything from my knowledge that nothing worse could ever happen to me. So I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And that became a mentality. And I became so resilient that I was unstoppable. And I still am. And I've made everything manifest and happen for me and connect with people on levels that people would never know, or in private conversations that aren't shown on social media, that have been so beneficial for my growth. Where, I've spoken with spiritual coaches who charge $1,000 an hour to speak, and they spoke to me for free because they wanted to talk to me, because they found value in me and are in touch with me, and we can call each other friends. So I became a person of value and a person of knowledge that's applied. So, and I'm here today.
Oh my goodness. This is so incredibly inspiring, because I just listened to you and it gives me hope that there's somebody out there listening that will be inspired as well to know that they're ready for that change to happen in their lives, and that they can take that risk of deciding to do that course, or deciding to go and see that therapist, or deciding to go and do that art course, or just deciding to listen to their heart and what that needs and follow their heart. And this is why I do what I do, because I need to hear from people like you who are, who are offering up these incredible insights into how life can go from absolute despair into the complete opposite, with positivity and hope and being an inspiration to others. So let's talk about what it is you want to do with your show. When you're talking to somebody on Chai Together, what goals are you trying to achieve there? What are you trying to bring about? And, who you're aiming your messages at?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I feel my message can be for anyone, because it's not just about the one thing, right? So before we recorded, we were sharing that it's not just about the one way. It's also, when the other person who's sharing their story, who's a guest on the show, is talking about what they've been through. And it makes someone not feel alone. I feel that's the most important thing. That sense of community is what helped me survive and helped me thrive. Everyone's support, love and support for my story and for what I was doing. Because at this time, I'm not recording Chai Together at this time currently. However, I do have ideas and things that I would like to do with Chai Together, more so behind the scenes and more so on the next level than just a show. I see a big dream with Chai Together, to where it doesn't even have to be, like I said, financially millionaire, billionaire level. Just the fact that Chai Together becomes a stable base for people with mental health concerns, for them to have education about their mental health concerns. I feel like when you catch that early on, you can save yourself life worth of suffering, because that's the experience my mother had. And because she first recognized at 47, now she's 65, in these years, she did not have any help. So I would like to tackle, if not specifically, I would like to narrow down what I do on Chai Together, and I would like to tackle people's suffering early on and have them heal, then suffer the rest of their life. Like that, I feel, is my goal, because I see my mom, and medicine is a sugar coat. Medicine is a Band-Aid. It does not heal the root of the concern. And the concern began years ago. To heal the root of the concern that began years ago is very difficult to do, especially when you're older in age. And That's my inspiration. So, but as far as the show goes, I will be bringing it back on. And when I do, I want to share more of my experiences, my stories. And when guests come on this time, I don't want it to be promotional. I want it to just be the message, the story, not more so what they're doing now regarding business, but just the story, because that's why I started Chai Together, for the authentic message of your story, how you overcame the pain, or and I don't feel pain ever ends, because we're human, but how did you overcome that specific time? And maybe what you have to say can help someone else. And that's all I want Chai Together to be: authentic and not promotional, not marketing, but just about that interpersonal communication and that connection, that you have someone here for you if you ever feel like giving up.
Oh, I've got chills.
That's how I feel.
Because yes. Wow, that's pretty powerful. And, just to be open, what I really love is that you have carried this through to your relationship with your mom. So tell us about what your relationship with your mom is like today.
Yeah. It is really good, to where it can make me cry, as in, I never gave up on her. A lot of people may talk about not giving up on someone or being there for someone, but when you have, and I know lots of people can relate to this, in adversity, when they're the caregiver for a parent or another loved one, or for end of life, anyone who does that kind of work, you live through it. It's been such hard times where we almost lost her, to where I had to make hard decisions to recoup her. Now she's at a place where she trusts me enough to share how she's feeling, even if not with a therapist, but she has me, knowing that I won't let her down, that I've always seen her through, even at her lowest points, even when she's resistant to medication. I've been on edge. I've been at the lowest points regarding this in the 2 years, but I've been balancing caring for her while caring for myself, while completing school, while building Chai Together, and now while working. It's been really interesting, and I cannot emphasize enough that I'm built for this, as in everything has made me built for this. Because if I was not resilient and had not gone through what I had gone through, I wouldn't have the capacity to care for her, because it's very, very difficult to care for someone who has a psychotic diagnosis. And it's not where you're calling someone crazy. It's someone who on a daily basis has to take medication to rewire their brain just so they could do normal daily functions. It's very difficult to care for someone and live with someone like that when they're not well, or when they're transitioning medication, because of the effects that it has you projected onto you in the environment. And me focusing on mental health, thank goodness that I've done the work on myself, and more inner healing I'm doing, and trauma healing, because if I didn't have these coping skills, these educational tools that I have today, and being gone through the programs I did, I would not be able to be stable and take care of her while taking care of myself. So today, as I was sharing with you prior to this recording, is, my mom and I did breath work together, and she was willing and open to do it with me on her own. And I was just guiding her through it outdoors in the sun. And her desire and will, or the fact that she's able to have a desire through having stable medication to want to do something, to take a shower, to put on makeup, to put on nice clothes, and to eat, because she was at a point where she did not shower. She was not going outside for 6 months. She was not socializing. I have been a pivotal person, that changed through God working through me as her daughter, to have her, for her to have the best life that she can by maintaining what she has going on. Because I cannot fix anyone, but I can do my best to make sure that you are normal as you can be as long as you live. So I'm a fighter by spirit. I fight the good fight.
Yep.
It's in my DNA. I've actually had a DNA analysis and some genetic consultation, and my spirit and the birth date that I'm born and all these things about my chart, birth reading chart, I am a fighter. So I believe that I'm given this story and I'm given this life to do the work I do, even though at times, no, I never do ask, why me? I have never asked that, because I know it's supposed to be me.
Oh,
I know I'm so unique, and I know it's not where I'm above or below anyone. That's why we say namaste, because everyone's equal. But it's the fact that I know that I can walk in my shoes. I cannot say that someone else can have that capacity to do what I do, with a stable mind.
Gosh.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack in what you've just said.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There's also a lot of profound wisdom that you bring to this episode from your own experiences. But I hark back to what you said earlier, and it's about being willing to do the work. It doesn't just come to us.
No.
Sometimes it takes something really pivotal or traumatic happening in our lives to take us to that point where we're stripped of everything we knew about ourselves to be prepared to take a step into what we truly should be. And I think that, for you, that's been the case. I think for me, that's been the case, and for many others. And it's been brave enough to do that, even though you don't know where the steps ahead are heading. You just need to trust that there is a beautiful reason that you are here on this earth. There is a beautiful reason you are experiencing what you are experiencing, even if at the time you think, I don't know how I can get through this next minute, this next hour, this next day. But just do exactly that. Take it by minute by hour, by day, and do it, because it's leading you somewhere. It's taking you to another place and a level of understanding. Oh my gosh, you're making me so. But let's go back to you because I want to understand about this book you've written and why you felt the need to write Resiliency, a woman's journey from scarcity to success, and how you see this helping others.
So it's interesting because you do not have an updated bio. It's all right. So no, I did not complete that book. It is not out yet. I have started writing about my journey, and I was writing a prior book in a collaboration with Mr. Les Brown for the Giving Circle charity. And that was called The Hunger for the Hustle. However, I ethically decided to pull away from the book and not submit at this time because it was just not aligned with me. So at this time, I am not publishing any books. But I do know, but I do know that if I do, I believe I'm called to do that at a later time in my life. Yeah. The reason why I chose not to write about all of this right now is because when something is too raw, that's where the perspective lies. I want to write about it when I've really, really outgrown from who I am in this moment. As in, I don't want to write about it and feel sad about it. I want to write about it and feel proud about it. And this isn't something that I rehearsed. I'm just speaking from my heart that I don't feel everyone needs to be an author. I know on social media, a lot of people are writing books and I can quickly just publish a book, but that's not my goal. So I had that bio at the time when I was going to do that. So I will be updating that. Apologies. However,
No
I do
problem.
not
This is a
feel,
good discussion.
yeah. However, I do not feel that I am any less of an author because I'm a storyteller, and the posts that I write and the things that I have done,
Yes.
the writing, the personal writing I do for myself, I know I am an author. However, I personally believe that you don't have to share a book or leave behind a book unless you want to. I would like to leave behind more of an impact with Chai together and tell the story that way and share the journey that way. I don't always feel it's necessary. It's interesting because Sadhguru, if you know of him, he's a yogi mystic in India
Mm-hmm.
and known globally. And he stated that everyone in the Western world is writing a book. Like they feel he was making a
Yes.
joke. But the thing is, just because you write a book doesn't mean that's going to be good or doesn't mean that it's needed. And I say this in a way that's not a negative way. I'm saying this with mindfulness, as in, you don't have to write just because other people are. You don't need to write a
Yeah.
book unless you feel like that's your way of leaving behind what you want to leave behind. There's other ways as well. So that's all I really mean from it. And I that's all I have to say about that right now, that I'm in no rush and I don't feel that I have to do something that I'm not called to do. It's going to happen on its own time because that'll be the right time frame for it. I feel like I'm still
Yes.
too young for it, and I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way. You can publish at whatever age, the younger the better. But I feel like, and my journey is very young. My journey is very young. I would like to be in a
Mm-hmm.
more wise place when I publish a book out of maturity.
Wow. That's brilliant. And I'm glad I asked that question, even if it was
Yes.
a little bit out of date.
That no, but
Bec-
that's okay. That's my
because
responsibility.
yeah, but I also believe, yes, there is this need for everybody to be writing a book about
Yeah.
their story and that. But I also think more importantly is often when you're writing, that's helping you understand who you are, what you
Yes.
are about. Because in order to put it into words, you have to understand yourself. And that's a big ask for people. And that can be very traumatic as well, reliving
Yes.
stuff that they perhaps haven't visited for such a long time. And I think you also have to be well supported doing that. So I agree with
Yes.
you that you need to be in a place of being able to look at it from a perspective like, wow, that was one tough journey, but
Yes.
man, I did it. I got through it. I did the work that I needed to do. And, and looking at it from that perspective, yes, I think that's a healthy, safe, valuable place to be writing from. Otherwise, it can break you and it can bring up stuff that
Mm-hmm.
you're not prepared to face or not
Yes.
supported to face.
I'm so glad you understand this. You're the first person that I shared that with online, on a podcast that's like understood that aspect, because when you have a history of trauma, even if you've overcome, healed, and been to therapy, you will need a therapist during that time, most likely. You need a
Mm,
more support, more even physical support and your presence when you're writing such a heavy book. More so, my whole life, those 27 years up until that trauma, have been all trauma from the age of 5 when I felt that
yes.
abandonment. So it's not safe for me to just pour my emotions and have the public read it. That's not very safe for my own health to do. So I do agree with you. Yeah.
And I think it's really important not just to share that, but also to give others tools so that if they're going through it themselves, that they know strategies or where
Mm-hmm.
to go to help them through that as well. So you have to balance it out, don't you? You can't just go
Mm-hmm.
blah. Or you
No.
can. Yes, some people can. Yes, and that's okay. Yeah, I'm not sitting in that place. But just for me, I think, my ownership would be, well, if I'm going to share to that level, then I also want people to be supported.
It
Yeah.
takes a lot to write a book regarding mental health or anything that's
Mm.
been traumatic, not I'm not sure if everyone agrees, but you have to be in the right place for that. And you will know. I feel like your intuition will tell you.
Absolutely. So we're going to wrap up with a couple of questions, and I always ask these questions. So what is the best thing that has happened to you so far today?
The best thing was meditating with my mom, doing breath work outside, sitting with her and just no phone, just embracing quality time and just looking at her and observing people and remembering them. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. I knew that was going to be your go-to. And what would you consider your proudest moment to date in your life?
Wow. My proudest moment would be when I made the decision that I was going to be successful. That moment when I told you that shifted for me.
Yes.
That is my proudest moment, because if I wasn't already resilient, I could have made the choice to commit suicide or fall into depression. Or I chose yoga, meditation every day. I chose to eat healthy. I chose to live my best life so I can prove to myself that, the abortion was not for nothing.
Oh, and I like what you said. Prove to myself.
Yes.
That's so important. Not prove to others.
No.
Prove to myself. It's all about the inner journey, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when you have moments in your day which absolutely turn to custard, not going right at all, that you just want to throw your hands up in despair, what is your number one go-to to pivot yourself out of that?
Wow. First thing I would say, breathing, breath work, clinical breath work with someone who's hosting it, one-to-one session or a group, has been very beneficial for my healing. The second thing I would say is some kind of activity, whether it's yoga or Tai Chi, and these are ones that I do, some kind of body movement, dance, some kind of flow to release that, whether it's through journaling, whether it's through therapy, whether it's through cooking, anything you do for yourself. I'm very big on and emphasize on doing something for yourself, because I have a lot of people that I know that are focused on their children only or focused on their work only and forget to take care of themselves. And I'm very big on that.
Yeah, self-care. Great. What takeaways would you like to leave our listeners with?
The one takeaway that I always say is don't kill yourself because of someone else and their actions that were projected onto you, the harm that they committed to you, because it was not your fault. And that's the one thing that I would really like to say, because suicide prevention is so necessary, especially for teenagers at the age of 15 or younger at this time in COVID, that you don't have to do that, that there is something for you if you just wait. Whether for me, it was 12 years of waiting for me to be shaken out and awakened out of that trauma, that depression, suicide ideations I was in. For you, it may be less than that. It may be more than that, but that day will come if you just decide that it will, and you just believe, to have that belief, that affirmations, because during that time, I affirmed that someone out there needs me. When in 2014, when I was about like 2021, I told myself, someone out there needs me. And that statement stuck with me. And today, this is the work that I do. So having that one thing about yourself, knowing that even though these people may be harming me, these other people who know me and my personality love me, think that I'm funny. So knowing that it's just your environment, but outside of that is beauty,
Yeah, that's powerful. And as you were saying that, it just reminded me that there was a time when I lost my daughter. I didn't want to be here. I did not. If I could not have my daughter, then what was the point of me being here? And I know that there are a lot of other people that quietly say that to themselves, maybe not saying it out loud, but definitely thinking that, how can I live this life without that beautiful person I've just lost, who's died, who's gone from my life? And I think we need to understand, yes, that we just have to get through that time, get through that phase, and believe and trust that there is a reason, or that there is a place that we're going to that can provide us with that nurturing love and happiness that we need to find again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pratibha Dey. My goodness me. This was a conversation unexpected on so many different levels, but really exciting for me to be having with you, because I feel like we were in sync, we were in tune, and I love what you're doing. I love where you've come from. And what I would want for my listeners is to have some chai in their day, some courage, some hope, and some inspiration in their day every day. So thank you so very much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I hope you got some real value from this episode. Let me know how I'm doing, or if there's a topic you'd like covered, by clicking on the Healing to Be You Gmail link, or going to the Healing to Be You website. To get notified of new episodes, hit the subscribe button, and please share if you know of someone who could benefit from this episode. Until next time, be kind to you and take good care.